I'm so impressed with everything that you've accomplished, and now being a writer for Charlamagne, on a Comedy Central show is a huge deal, and you've had this job, like, a little over a year now?
Yeah, so we started out. It was one version of the show, but then we switched up. It was the God's Honest Truth, and then we switched the format and everything. So it's basically a whole entire new show. So now it's a hell of a week, and yeah, we were this episode where we got 7 episodes in for this season. So coming up on the 8th episode, we've been able to make some noise. So with some of the interviews and some of the topics that we've talked about. So far so good. I never know what, networks and suits want or whatever. I just try to do the best job possible and have fun and do my thing and leave it to the network gods.
Okay, I was gonna. I'm wondering what like the process is like because I remember when I was writing for like Punchline, it's just a few episodes, but like little things that you wouldn't be able to guess that they would have a problem with. Like I think it was Fox, and they told me like I had a joke that had the word Viagra in it, and they're like, no, you can't say Viagra.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, what? I have to say blue pills. It's like, is it the branding? And you just don't know until you go through it. So do you feel like do you feel like ever censored with your joke writing process? Do you just submit to them and they pick what they want? Or like how much control do you feel like you have over what comes out?
Well, it goes back and forth. I will say, even though we give S&P and S&P standards and practices, even though we give them shit on our show, they actually let us get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, we're Comedy Central, so we're it's basic cable show, so you get away with a lot more than you would on a Fox or network like NBC or something like that. And then the time that you come on affects that as well. We come on at 11:30 as opposed to like prime time, so that allows you to do way more things than you would otherwise. But as far as that, I mean, there's just things you just have to, look out for. That S&P really isn't there to cram your fun, even though that's how we may respond to them. They're really there to keep us, as it will, keep the show or the network from being sued and being liable for stuff. Um, there's just a lot of unfun laws and stuff that we have to abide by. So we have to say allegedly a lot, and
Mhm.
you have
Okay.
to and then there's branding, like you said with the Viagra. It might be a branding thing where it's like you literally can't name certain items because they may advertise for the show, or they may be in competition. You can't look like you're promoting a product because it may be in competition with one of your other advertisers. Like all that stuff that we don't care about, but other people are paid to care about it. That may affect how you say a joke or whatnot. But then it might just come down to no, we're not gonna let you say it, and it just might just be that it might go up to the higher ups, and they just go, no, we don't want the heat. We don't want you. You can't say that, and you just have to go. Fine, whatever.
What do you feel are the biggest challenges of writing for the show?
Um, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Like this season, there hasn't been, as far as creatively, there really hasn't been that many challenges. Last season it was a little more challenging, I think, because it was a different format, so it was more monologue. It was, and when I say monologue, I mean more John Oliver style, and so it was more essay style, if you will. So that could be challenging, not because it was hard to do, but just because there were a lot more people whose opinions had to be considered. So you're writing an essay, but you're including several different opinions
Oh,
of
right.
people
Okay.
who are above you, and so it just makes for to me personally, it doesn't make for a clear, concise, fun essay. It makes for a lot of different opinions.
Right, because how many writers are there? Like, how many cooks are in the kitchen over
Well, it's
there?
not the writers. Like I'm the head writer, so
Okay.
everything goes through me ultimately. But then it has to go out to EPs, and and
Okay.
obviously Charlamagne's voice is the biggest voice, but there's a lot of different EPs and a lot of different stuff who have their own opinion, and then it goes to network, and network might have their opinion. So it's just trying to please many masters, which can be difficult. I mean, you do the best you can, but it can be difficult at times if people have different opinions. This season is a lot smoother. because the format is more joke heavy, and we have a panel of comedians and experts and journalists that come on to like really chop it up and talk it out. So we set it up with jokes, and then they go and they just Charlamagne just conducts his panel and his interviews. So it's less on us to give this thoughtful, nuanced argument, and it's more on us to
Yeah.
be funny, give Char a bunch of jokes, set up the story, and then let him take it from there, which
The
is
format is I and I've watched a few episodes, like, yeah, this new format is very similar to, I think, like, how Gutfeld does his show, where it's like he's got his opening, um, like, kinda monologue, and then it goes out to the guests on the panel. What is the process like for the guests? Like, will you send them the topics the morning of or the night before? And, like, what kinda direction would you give them? Or do
yeah,
they get
we send them the topics. We may even give them, we don't necessarily give them specific questions to them, but we may give them an idea of the type of questions we'll be asking, just so they kind of have an idea of what we'll be talking about. And I don't know exactly. That's usually the producers that sends that. They probably send it out maybe the night before, just to give them a little time to chew on it. Unless there's obviously a topic, because we're topical, there might be a topic that happens that day that we, put in that day. And in that case, they may brief them at the studio, like while the guests are there, they'll just brief them in real time. But other than that, that's pretty much the process with the guests.
how did they find you? Like, how did they kinda discover you and pick you up?
Well, I've been in kind of the Viacom, well, form is now Paramount, but I was in the Viacom system for a little while working on like other shows that they have. And so it's basically all relationships, I came up with literally our showrunner, Rachel, I came up with her at Viacom. So she already knew me, already knew her.
Like,
And
from stand-up, or you mean from writing on other
no,
shows?
from writing. Like
Okay.
she was a producer, and she came up at like Wild and Now and like a bunch of other stuff. And I was writing for a bunch of different shows and working on different shows. Like I worked on Wild and Now. I worked on Charlamagne's old show, Uncommon Sense, back in the day, and like some other stuff like the VMAs and all that kind of stuff. And so you just kind of know people and you know each other. And so when Rach got positioned as showrunner, she didn't necessarily say you got the job, but it was more so, hey, submit, we like just submit for a position. I was like, yeah, of course. So I submitted a packet, and then long story short, she had me meet with some of the other EPs, a couple of the EPs I had known from working at Viacom before. And then I had to meet with EPs, and then she said that I was being considered for head writer. I was only being considered for writer at first, and then it was like head writer. I was like,
Whoa.
"Pack it, yeah." And then so I had to meet with Charlamagne and just get a rapport again, because I hadn't talked to him in a while since I had worked on his other show. So just get that rapport and talk about the show and my ideas for the show. And then funny enough, she said, "All right, now you got to meet with Steven." And I was like, "All right." And I told my sister, who was a producer on other shows, I was like, "Yeah, I got to meet with some dude named Steven." She was like, "You mean Colbert?" And I was like, "No." She would have said Colbert. And then she was like, "Ask her if it's Colbert." And then so I text the showrunner. I was like, "Did you mean Stephen Colbert?" And she was just like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You should leave
What?
Colbert." Yeah,
There's a lot of Stevens.
yeah.
Yeah.
But by then, she had already talked to him for so long that she just was on a first name basis. I'm like, "I'm sorry." He's still like a
Yeah.
comedic icon to me. So yeah, I had to meet because he's an executive producer on the show. So I had to
Oh,
meet.
wow. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. So I had
Yeah.
to meet with him virtually. I met with him virtually, but basically, I met with him virtually. I was super
Were
nervous,
you
but he was
nervous?
so
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I was very nervous, but
And this
he was
is during still pandemic-y time, so this
yeah,
is, like, last spring?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
early spring?
totally, totally. But what made it cool was he pops up. First of all, he pops up on screen, and my first thought is like my TV is talking to me. Like it
Mhm.
looked like it was very surreal and weird to have like somebody that you see on TV all the time just all of a sudden be like, "Hi, Charles." Like, wait, what? Um,
Wow.
but he's holding this piece of paper around, right, as he's talking, like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But then finally he goes, "Well, I just want to say that this packet is one of the best packets I've ever read." And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
yeah!" Like he was like, "Yo, Stephen Colbert read my words and my jokes, and he's telling me it's one of the best things he's read." So
Wow.
yeah, it was
That's
wild. It was
really
very
cool.
surreal, very surreal. And he just was like, "I'm here for you. I'm here to give you advice, anything you need." And it was basically on and popping from there. So
Did he give
yeah,
you a cell phone or anything like that? Like, text me anytime, like that kind of a thing?
I didn't graduate to cell phone, but email. And then he would pop into the studio, and I would go over to Ed Sullivan Theater and pop in there and like all that kind of stuff. So like yeah, it's a lot of one on ones, a lot of FaceTime. So yeah, all good stuff. But that's pretty much how it happened. It was me hearing about it, hearing about the show, and then just submitting a packet. But based on that, it just kind of went up the
Yeah.
ranks. Yeah.
What did they want you to like, what was in the packet? Like, what did they want you to give them?
It was actually a very simple packet, which I prefer. I hate packets that's like 5 pages long and you gotta like solve in a Rubik's Cube and like all that kind of stuff. It was take something off the news and just go in on it on a funny
Like a rant.
like a rant. Yeah, basically like a rant. And so what made it I think better for me was the fact that by the time I submitted mine, it was a little later than the deadline. So everybody that submitted, because I ended up having to go back and read all the other packets once I got the job as head writer. I had to read
Wow.
the other packets. So, and it was like over 300 submissions. So all the other
Oh,
packets
man.
were, and not that it's their fault, but you taking the headline. So they were all kind of the same thing. And I remember the main headline at that point was Gorilla Glue Girl. So
Okay, yeah.
it
She
was
put
a
it in
lot
her
of
hair. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. It was a lot of different takes on Gorilla Glue Girl and stuff, which is fine. Some of them were sucked and some of them were great. But mine was because it was later. Mine was on Dr. Seuss being canceled. And so I think it was just a fresh off the top. It was just a fresh topic at the time. But yeah, that was mine. I picked that and I just did a breakdown. And what Steven said he liked a lot about it was I was able to break down the story, fill it with jokes, but also come at it from both sides and not just, oh, here's my liberal side or here's
Mhm.
my other side. Because I really honestly could give a shit either way. I'm politically fluid, if you will. So is whatever. So I'm always attacking things from both sides, and he really appreciated the fact of how the way I did that. So
That's great. Yeah, not a lot of, people do that. You kinda get settled on your opinions. Did you get the sense that did they give you any direction, like, try to attack it from both sides? Like, did you get any sense at any time during the process, like, that they cared what your politics were or
no, the packet itself was just take a topic, go off. Just like take a time. I forget exactly how I was worded, but basically break it down. With jokes, but like go off on it, and that was it. There was no like attack it from a political side or anything like that. Especially because it's Charlamagne, and even though I think Charlamagne votes more democratically, he like depending on the subject, he can come at it from a more conservative, definitely a more conservative perspective on a lot of things. So like you really do yourself a disservice trying to predict, you know, particularly writing for Char, thinking that I'm gonna just go from a liberal standpoint because that's what he's gonna do. It's like no, he depending on what it is, he'll go whichever way makes the most sense to him.
do you get the sense that the show audience is more democratic?
It's weird. It's a good question because it's a strange balance because on the one hand, it's like it's Charlemagne, so it's his audience, there's his, people that he's bringing in, but then there's also Comedy Central, and we're coming off of the Daily Show, so it's like very liberal, but then we're kind of bringing in our, middle ground, liberal, but maybe conservative on certain things. And so we're trying to find that balance. But overall, we're in a very liberal left playing field. I don't know if Daily Show would consider themselves liberal, but I would say it's safe to say it's
Yeah,
really a
they
liberal
definitely are.
leaning, yeah, audience. So we're in that somewhere in that pocket.
I wonder if it's a concern, like, I wonder if it's something, like, the higher ups think about, like, they don't wanna turn off the audience that's leading into the show. Like, if it's they don't wanna I wonder if that's a consideration, like, "Oh, we wanna turn off, like, X amount of liberal viewers that are coming off The Daily Show to watch us."
I mean, I would say it's always a consideration, no matter what network it is, but I don't think it's liberal conservative. I think it's just viewers. Like they just if viewers are coming, I think their networks are happy. So if regardless of the viewers, it's like, all right,
Right.
you can turn off liberal viewers, but you better replace them with some other.
Right.
What I mean,
Do you feel like you ever have to, like, answer for Charlemagne's, like, spicy takes or controversial opinions or, like, do you feel like people go to you for, like, answers or do you feel like essentially you have to, like, answer or speak for him or anything like that? Because sometimes I'll have on, like, a spicy guest and then someone will be like, "Oh, well, they said X, Y, and Z," and, like, you let them say that or something like or do you feel like as a writer, you're a bit distanced
I
from
I mean, one thing about Shar, and I think that's why maybe I don't know. I can't speak. Well, speaking for him, I can't speak for him in this. Uh, but I genuinely don't care. Like people can say whatever they want. Like if there's something because there are things that he might say that I might disagree with. And I'll be like, well, and they might go, oh, he said this. I'm like, well, that's his opinion, and he's entitled to his opinion. But there's a lot of things that he says that I'm like, yeah, I totally, even if I'm not 100% in agreement, I totally get where you're coming from, and I don't think that's such a crazy idea. So we're pretty aligned in a lot of things, and some things we might not be aligned in. But the idea that somebody would come to me and try and check me on something Charlamagne would say, that would be a fun time for me. 'Cause I get a lot of shit off my chest.
Have you ever gotten, like, I don't know, like, have people ever come after you, like, online or anywhere for, like, a joke you've written or something that happened on the show? Do you feel like you've ever gotten, any blowback?
Um, Here's the thing: I don't check my mentions, so probably, but I don't check them. I don't check my mentions at all. Yeah, it just I turn off that part of me that like cares because the thing is like the jokes that we write, I mean, we're not just shooting off the hip. Like it's a whole room, there's a whole staff. We do the jokes in the room with the whole team and like the whole staff is in the room, and so we bounce them off of different people. We a very heavy female staff, so it's just like if something's you two, is this misogynistic? Is Shar gonna get crazy pushback off this, or is this homophobic? Like whatever the case is, we
Mhm.
got enough people to go. I don't know. And by the time
Hmm.
Shar says it out of his mouth, we've given him all the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs.
Okay.
So it's pretty vetted. But even if somebody still wants to be offended, it's like I mean it's what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure there are times where, like, the staff might be like, "Oh, this might be misogynistic or homophobic," and I'm sure he'll be like, "But I think it's funny, and I'm gonna say it." Like, I feel like ultimately it's his choice, or do you feel like it's ultimately your choice? Or
No,
kinda
no,
maybe
no. It's
both?
ultimately his choice. Make no doubt about it. Is Shard has the last final say on what he says and what goes out. So I can write it up, but he's gonna say what he wants to say. And sometimes he'll just add things in. He'll be like, I want to say this too.
Yeah,
All right. If anything, we'll try and maybe punch it up or shape it more into like a joke, but like he'll be in the script and he'll put what he wants and say what he wants as well. So yeah, it's his show, so he gets final
yeah.
say.
He's really quick on his feet, and it's also, like, he can handle backlash, like, he's been doing this a long time, he's a
Yeah.
pro. Ultimately, I think he has kind of reached, like, a level of being uncancelable just for how long he's been around and how talented he is. Who have been your favorite 3 guests on the show?
Um. Wow. You know what? Michael Rappaport was fun. It wasn't like I don't think it got a ton of like crazy pickup, but he was just fun to have because he just says whatever. And he was a cool guy. Trying to think who else. We had Kevin Hart on last season. And he was great. Issa Rae, she was cool. She was very cool. Yeah, I don't really fan out. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like
Right,
it's
'cause you do comedy, and it's like you kind of are seeing famous people semi-frequently.
yeah. So it's not really anybody that came. I mean, everybody was not, everybody's been nice, pleasant. Oh, Fat Joe. Fat Joe is always fun to have on because he'll tell stories and he's a good time. So probably so far Fat Joe. Um, but yeah, other than that, I don't
Okay.
I don't usually trip over it.
You don't have to say like, yeah, maybe you can't say who your least favorite were, but what guests do you feel like, this like, the audience maybe had a negative reaction to?
Um, so I'm not copping a plea here. Honestly, I will say this. Um, so far, no one, but that doesn't mean that won't change because we're really trying to bring on like some of everybody. So there's a good chance that you'll see someone on there that the audience or that will be like, oh hell no, blah 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 blah. But so far, like it hasn't been anybody that the audience necessarily has had a negative reaction to. But I have a feeling that that's going to change soon for the better. I mean, for us
Yeah,
it'll be great because everybody will be talking. But
'cause they're pretty vocal, like, you'll hear if they're in agreement with something that somebody says or, like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like active listening. Do
But we
you
really want to have like people who of different opinions and different, um, political sides and stuff like that. So far, uh, you know, s- sometimes it'll be a little difficult to get like conservatives to come on. I don't know if they think
Mhm.
they're gonna get ambushed or something like that or whatever. But like we want people from like all sides. So I think once that happens, maybe there'll be you'll hear people start going, oh yeah, this person on or whatever. But as far as
Right.
internally, like the show, like we want everybody that makes sense that will have a good conversation. So
And I hear that from both sides, like, if there is a more right-leaning show, I've heard, like, even it's not a comedy show, but, like, even, like, with Tim Pool, they have a hard time getting more left-leaning guests on, and so
yeah.
it's, like, it's true on both sides, like, everybody's afraid of being ambushed, I guess.
Well,
Uh
I know the left because I do Jimmy's show a lot over at Fox,
Oh,
and like
Jimmy Fallon's show?
yeah,
Mhm.
and I always get crap for. So I think the left are afraid of what their friends or what their colleagues will say if they're associated with other.
Oh, like, judgment from their peers of
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that might be what it is for the left not being on right leaning shows or whatever.
that makes sense, that makes sense. I'm so proud of you, Charles, you're really crushing it. I love it. I'm so
Listen,
happy for you.
I appreciate it, and despite anyone being mad at me for saying this, I don't care. I like seeing you piss people off, regardless
Aw.
political leanings, this, that, and the third. Just comic to comic, I like seeing comics ruffle feathers and forcing people to actually, uh, have conversations and calling people out on their hypocrisy. So shout out to
Oh,
you.
thanks. Thanks, Charles. Appreciate it, bro. Love you guys. Thank you for the chats. Thank you for the comments. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Bye. All right. Love you guys. God, I don't even want to leave. This candle smells so good. I don't want to leave. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye. Love you all. Join the Discord. Feet. Love you all. Wow. You guys are awesome. Come and get it. Bye, guys. Bye. Now I'm really leaving. Love you. Bye.